All right, this is the one. This is the video. Gentrification in Costa Rica. What's going on? Is the rich buying up everything? The rich white gringo from the United States taking over Costa Rica? We're going to be getting, I think, a little bit deeper into this gentrification subject, and we'll get to it in a minute. Guys, I'm Michael Allen for TravelCostaRicaNow.com. And subscribe, please do. I'd appreciate it. Want to show love for videos like this. Nobody else is doing this shit for you. You know, videos like this, you can donate coffee. It's a fun way to donate. There's a link in the description. Donate a coffee. And you know I love the coffee. And you know one cup's just not going to be good enough. Relocation retreat coming soon. Costa Rica's on your radar. Not quite sure. This event, 6-7 day event, might be for you. By the end of it, I think you'll know if Costa Rica is right for you or, honey, we're going to Belize. And you know, just the contacts alone are worth the price of admission. It's half vacation, great information. It's just so... I have such a great time, man. You know, it's like my 2-3 favorite. And when we do them, it's my favorite thing to do throughout the year is meeting you guys. All right, man. Woo, probably going to lose some subscribers on this one, like I do. All right, gentrification. But before we start because we're going to talk about all of it. We're going to talk about the positives, like the negatives, and maybe some of the solutions, all of it. But you know what doesn't help? I can tell you what doesn't help. Gringo, go home. White people taking over Costa Rica. Leave. You're ruining the country. We don't want you. I'm sorry, guys. That is not helpful. And you know what? If you live in the real world, like most of us do, at least the people that watch my videos, I know you stragglers come in and make your little comments about Gringo, go home, but most people like intelligent conversation, discourse, back and forth. I like getting feedback. You guys I love you guys because you give great feedback. You keep me right. You steer me right. Mike, you know, you should have said this, or, you know, I like when you said that, but I disagree with you on that. That's what it's supposed to be about. So we can make informed decisions. You know, Gringo, go home. Not only is it false because that's identity politics crap or virtue signaling. You know, because it's actually a class thing, not an identity thing. It's rich people from anywhere in the world buy land here. It's not just like some white dude from, the United States. So you got to get off kind of that right away because that's just, I think, the wrong way to look at this gentrification. But again, if you live in the real world, you know that, you know, this is going to happen whether you want it to or not. People are going to buy land here. Now we are going to talk about it. We're going to see what maybe they could do to help out because I don't want, it's just like in Europe, you don't want, you know, people from other cultures that don't even want to really, you know, acclimate to your culture taking over. You know, you don't want that. And they don't want it here either, you know, so I don't either. So don't misunderstand what I'm going to say and go, well, Mike, you think we should just buy up all the land. No, I'm just saying I live in the real world where people with money, whether they're other Ticos, locals that have money, whether they're white gringos, whether they're Germans, whether they're from Africa, wherever the frick they're from, they have money. People buy stuff, and people with money tend to rule in a sense. So, with that being said, I think we all know the negatives of you know, just total like gentrification that's unencumbered. All right. So obviously poor people get displaced, rich people come in, buy up all the land, maybe even make lots. People, you know, the locals can't afford it. You know, the economic situation, you know, gets unattainable. And, you know, again, other cultures are taking over the beachfronts or big businesses. And, you know, the locals don't have any say in you know, what's even going on in their country or the land. You know, so all those negatives can be true, you know, for sure. So we all know what the negative aspects of gentrification can be if it's not controlled to some extent. All right, we're gonna get into whether Costa Rica is capable of, you know, putting some checks and balances up. But let's talk about a little bit of some of the positives. We definitely know the negatives. And if you want to list some more, you can. I mean, there's a bunch of negatives about, you know, unencumbered, you know, gentrification, people just coming in. But okay, so obviously economic growth. Economic growth is a positive. New investments, housing, business, infrastructure, which leads to job creation, economic opportunities for the local communities. That's a true statement. How do you think this tourism runs here by itself? No, the locals get jobs. They get jobs. And so with new investment comes a lot of good stuff. Again, housing, business infrastructure, and opportunities, which also will tend, because money's going to go to infrastructure. You're going to get, you're going to get better roads, you're going to get better utilities, you're going to get better public spaces, better transportation systems, because the people, like, let's say if they have a big, like, hotel or whatever they're doing, they want to make sure people can get there. So you think they're just going to leave a gravel road? I saw it in Fortuna a lot of times where the nicer hotels would pave the road 5 miles long from, the main road to their property, things like that. So I think you're looking at better infrastructure, because people are going to pump money into it to make that area better accessible. And, like, your internet's working and electricity's not going off every 2 seconds. So I think, again, new investments can bring some of those positives. Enhanced amenities, just like restaurants get better, shops get better, tour companies get better, recreational facilities, cultural attractions, all those things get better, and it increases the standard of living in the area. When there's money into that area, it's going to increase and enhance all those things. Increased tourism. Obviously, if you're upgrading your neighborhood and you're upgrading attractions, or you're paving that road, or whatever you're doing to increase tourism and bring in, upgrade the neighborhoods or whatever a little bit, you're contributing to the local economy and creating opportunities for small businesses, local small businesses. Obviously, property of value appreciation. If you have a bunch of, expensive properties, it's going to raise the cost. And again, we're going to talk about how, so, it's not a total, negative, but the property value appreciation is a thing. Your values are going to go up, and your locals, their financial situation can get a lot better, and it can improve their financial situation. Okay. The other one, there's a cultural exchange. You just got some more diversity in the area, which always, when there is kind of a melting pot and people are on the same wavelength. I'm not talking about melting pots that don't jive. Like, you don't really want to be here and you're trying to change the culture. Somebody's coming here and trying to change, how like the locals do things and stuff, but more of an enhancement of more of them coming down here and integrate, adapting and adjusting to the culture, and bringing theirs a little bit too. And I think it just creates a little bit of diversity. And again, you aren't going to stop that. Sorry, not sorry. So the cultural aspect, and then the environmental aspect too, because if you put in some eco-friendly initiatives, so let's say sustainable construction practices, you're going to, and, you preserve the natural habitats around here, which that's what Costa Rica is known for, natural stuff. So, also, again, help with the environmental. Now we're going to get to that. I mean, all this stuff's got to jive. It can't be one-sided. There's going to have to be things put in place. They got to control this, because, again, rich people are rich people. They come in, and there are sometimes, if you don't put any parameters on them, they're got, that big hotel down in, wherever Jaco could, is influential. They got money. So we got to put some things in place. So the gentrification is controlled, or the progress is controlled, because all those positives are real, and if done correctly, locals and Costa Rica in general benefit immensely. They already do this stuff without kind of some controls, but if they had the controls, man, I think this could really be a kind of a positive experience. Now, what are those? So obviously regulating foreign property ownership. Who are you selling to? Are you going to limit? You're going to regulate the purchase of, land by foreigners? Maybe you should. Because you've got to ensure that the local communities retain access to affordable housing. right? So that's why you got to regulate. You can't let these people come in all willy nilly doing whatever the hell they want. So there's got to be regulations again. So communities retain the access to affordable housing. Um, why do I keep saying protecting public spaces. You got to enforce laws that safeguard public access to beaches. You know, you don't get to own it. Now they're pretty good about that here down in Costa Rica. You don't, you know, you have access to beaches if you're, you know, if you're anybody, it's public. You know, it's public. You can't privatize that. But other communal areas as well. They can't be like, let's say, roped off, and you know, for just privatization. So you're going to have to protect those public spaces for the locals, because that's what's going to counter the privatization driven by luxury development. So when they come in with their money, you know, and they try to switch things around. Oh, well, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do this. You can't come, but you can. Where's your ID saying you can come in here? Are you a client of the hotel? You know, so you gotta protect those spaces. You definitely need community involvement. You're going to have community involvement. You guys can't have these big, you know, whoever's coming in with money. And this isn't just beach. Obviously, it affects beach towns a lot because all rich people or with rich businesses, they see the potential of tourism. They do buy up the beachfront. I think that's pretty kind of normal all around the world, isn't it? I mean, mostly that's kind of what happens. But again, you're also talking about, when we're talking about this gentrification, you can also consider, you know, I know in Fortuna, you know, there's farmers that are selling like, you know, 400 hectares, you know, you know, 400 acres, we'll say, you know, and for a pretty decent price. And, you know, if somebody comes in and kind of with their money and kind of takes over, again, he's going to need to be put in check. So this isn't just beach towns. These should apply to anywhere in Costa Rica. You've got to have community involvement. The locals need a say in what's happening, and the projects need to align. The projects people are doing, wherever they're doing, need to align to the needs and values of the community they're doing them in. You just don't get to do whatever you want without some say of locals, and locals have to have a voice. They've got to have a voice. Environmental protection has to happen. They got to introduce regulations that prevent environmental degradation. You know, just doing whatever they want to do, cutting down the trees. The big thing here is shutting down corridors. You know, where like the monkeys and the sloths. You know, and even like the jaguars. That's why jaguars have been reduced to certain areas, because they fuck up the corridors. They all of a sudden build, and there's no connection between the jungle over here and the jungle over here, with a big neighborhood or a big hotel and stuff right in the middle, right? And that was a thing for a while, but they've definitely gotten a little bit better about that. But remodeling projects and construction, it's gotta be regulations to watch what they're doing and how they're building. Costa Rica's got to preserve the natural beauty and the resource of whatever area people are in. And unfortunately, this can be a big problem. I've seen this a lot. I think Manuel Antonio, although I think it's happening other places, I don't know. There just seems like anybody can build anywhere, and infrastructure takes a hit. So they're like, whatever, build wherever, do whatever, money coming in. But it's kind of like, you know, putting the cart before the horse. They're not putting down, like, let's say, regulations. So all this can be good in the future. You know, again, what about infrastructure? What about water? Is there enough water? How's the sewage going to go? What's going on? So I see this as something that Costa Rica is going to have to, you know, really start enforcing, which we're going to talk about that in a minute. But, you know, they just can't let everybody with money do whatever the hell they want, because that's kind of seems like where they're at right now, which is why these other things need to be done if they're going to progress. If they're going to go into the future right, they need to do this. If they do not do this, I would probably be one of people, you know, holding the placard saying "Gringo, go home." If Costa Rica can't do some of this stuff right and do regulations and stop some of this, before it gets way out of hand. Some people would say it's already way out of hand. So I see that. I've already seen that. Fortuna kind of the same way. They're just building, 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 building with no thought of, like next year. Everything's now, money now. Nobody delays gratification anymore. It's so funny. Nobody. you know, there's something to be said for making decisions based on the future and not right today, I think. There should probably be some tax incentives for sustainable people that practice sustainable development. You do want to bring in good people with like-minded, that for the love of the country and the beauty and everything that Costa Rica has. They probably should get a little bit of a tax incentives if they're using sustainable and inclusive practices. I mean, that's that's kind of a no-brainer. It would be kind of like integrating affordable housing into luxury developments. You know what I mean? So people that are kind of thinking not just of their business but of the locals. I think that's a big one. So, and then the biggest one is monitoring this, enforcing it. You just can't freaking say things, which Costa Rica's known for, man. I've said it a million times. Everyone writes me and go, Michael, the law says this about this. I don't care what the law says. I know what's real and how things are really done. So when you say there's a law, I'm saying, so what? So what? There's a law. They don't enforce it. They don't enforce a lot of laws here. So they're just hoping that you get scared, well, there's a law, you can't do that. I thought I was going to get away from these dogs barking for a minute, but so they got to enforce this. They got to apply, violate. I mean, they got to go after people and quickly with, effectively ensuring compliance. You don't get to get caught 3 years down the road. They need to get a hold of this stuff and they need to enforce. This is, to me, when people say this gentrification thing is big, I think it's big for another reason. You think it's big because, or not you, but the person that doesn't really know my channel, they're like, oh, you just, another white guy went to Ciudad Costa gentrifying. Shut the fuck up, man. Get into reality. This is not going to stop, okay? You're not stopping this, especially the way Costa Rica does things, but they can definitely implement things like we just kind of went over, and I'm sure you guys got ideas about that too. I think I hit broadly most of them, but if they've enforced some of these things, we can go into the future, in a more positive way and, protecting locals, Ticos, their way of life, their culture, make sure that people aren't, left behind. There's always some people left behind, okay? There are. That's the way it goes. So anyway, that's kind of my spiel. I don't know. Did I misspeak? Did I say something wrong? I'm sure you'll tell me, but that's fine. I don't mind that. Be nice. You can give feedback. Somebody the other day, they wrote on a comment like, Mike, you look like shit. Get off the booze. Damn, I'm not even on the booze. And it's like, oh, wow, that sucked. No, I don't care. Anyway, guys, comments, feedback, your experiences here. Again, what did I get right? What did I get wrong? I'm Michael Allen, travelcostaricanow.com. Thinking about living or traveling anywhere, always do your homework and research. And if it's Costa Rica, man, who's doing this for you? Who's doing this? Check out that video of mine or that video of mine, or maybe just subscribe. All right, man. Ciao.